Hey, I'm Nathan. After a really long hiatus, I'm back with a new video. It's an interview with the musician T. Gowdy. He put out my favorite record of 2025 entitled Trill Scan. We had a great conversation over Zoom. I'm excited to share it with you now. Thanks for watching.
T. Gowdy, thank you so much for doing this interview. I admire and enjoy your music a lot, and I've wanted to talk to you for a while. And the fact that you agreed to this interview is bewildering, but I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you.
It's a great pleasure. Thanks for having me. Happy to do it.
I wanted to start off by playing a small excerpt of a piece from your first album. So let's just get into it. So yeah, after listening to that, I kind of just want to have you talk about the beginning of your career, your first full length, maybe what kind of gear you were using, where you were at in your life at that time.
I had sort of just started. I moved to Berlin in 2016, and I was I had a friend's studio, actually kind of in the vicinity where I'm actually right now, but in a different building. And I had brought, because I was really a recording engineer before I kind of started on my artist thing, and I had brought a lot of compressors and things like that from Canada, and I was kind of patching them in the weirdest way that I could, and I was using acoustic feedback and just like it was completely freestyle, and I think that was very liberating for me at the time, just to kind of um, throw all the rules out the window and have have fun. That was kind of the ethos of that record, I would say, to like just jump off a cliff and play around with the stuff that I had at my fingertips.
That's great. Did you go to recording school? You mentioned having a recording engineering background. Was that part of your
Yeah, I
education?
did. I did do that. And then after that, after I graduated, I was basically an engineer for bands and studios for 10 years about.
And just thinking about this particular track, I feel like a drum machine kind of plays heavily into it. Is this a thing where, maybe getting a drum machine, you were kind of like, whoa,
Yeah. I picked up the analog rhythm, and not long before that event or that song happened, and it was something that I was meaning to do for a while, is to improve my rhythmic abilities, because I felt they maybe were lacking, and so I saved up and or sold some things and bought this, and I still have it today, and I use it all the time, and yeah, it's like the thing, I can always go to that and just make a track basically kind of right away. And it's great because you can do samples and it has synthesis in it, so you can kind of just, you can add your own flavor to it. It's not something that is just filled with like a factory sounds or presets. Like you can just kind of put your soul into it, and it's very flexible. I use it live, so it's looking pretty beat up these days. It's got tape all over it, but it's still there, it's still working.
that's awesome. So I saw a video on YouTube of you playing at Mutech, I believe, with
Yeah,
that
Mutech. Yep.
device. And so I knew
Yeah.
that it would come up in this interview, and I wasn't fully expecting it to come up at the beginning. So I
Yeah,
definitely would like to swing back to that because I'm very
for
interested
sure.
in just hearing more about the workflow and sounds of that particular device. But thinking about your early life in music, was there a point where you felt that music was like a calling or a path for you?
Actually, yeah, I when I was 11 years old, I was sort of like accepted or yeah, accepted to go to this boy choir school in Princeton, New Jersey. And at that point, it was sort of like it was a professional choir, so we were touring around and everything. So I think at that point, it was like, well, yeah, this is what I'm doing. And then after that, I didn't really have any other, that's kind of always what I wanted to do. So I just stuck with that, did music school, got into guitar and then recording and then this kind of stuff. So it's always been the main thing, I guess. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm
Great.
happy about that. I recently made a social media post just to like, I just like was so I just felt so lucky actually because I'm able to spend hours and hours just kind of putting stuff together and I just find it so fun. So I'm kind of happy about that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to play another piece of music now. And I think this is the first song of yours I heard, and I still find it immediately recognizable and arresting. It's the second track on the album Miracles, which is also the song title is also Miracles. I just think that that record and that song is just like such a killer starting point. And so, thinking about this album, it was put out by Constellation Records, which is a label that a lot of people that are into music recognize. So, I'm curious how this relationship came about and what it was like to maybe see one of your albums vinyl in a record store for the first time. I mean, it's an achievement for any musician, I think.
Well, in fact, the record before that also came out on Constellation called Therapy with Color. So that was the first one with that label, and then this was the second one. And yeah, like w when it all happened, I was astounded actually. I just didn't see that coming. I was looking for a label, and being in Montreal, I was at a party and a friend of a friend with a friend, and she had along one of the guys, and yeah, like we didn't really hit it off or anything, but like in some way, like in some manner, I ended up sending some music to them, and a few months later, I just got an email being like, "Oh, okay, well." So that was exciting for me, and also to have yeah, records pop up in stores and friends take pictures of it, of these the records and be like, "Oh, your record's in London over here." That's kind of fun. I
Amazing.
kind of like that. Yeah, it's nice.
I do have to ask about the record cover of Miracles because, as someone who has taken a bunch of pictures in my life, I find myself always looking at that one and being like, I think this is a window reflection, maybe, but
It,
I'm not
it
sure
is.
what it
Yeah.
is. But
Yeah.
yeah, could
This got an
you?
interest. It has an interesting story. One of my friends here in Berlin had a big sort of counter that used to be at a pharmacy in East Germany in the 60s. And, like you walk in and they have like their medication and drugs in this sort of big glass counter in an oak, frame. And I loved it when I saw it and I asked him if I could have it for a bit just because I loved it. And I kind of thought I was doing visuals and I kind of felt like, there might be some aspect here that I could use. So heavy. So I don't know. They managed to get it into my apartment. And then yeah, in the end, what I ended up doing was taking some screens and or like having them in these glass counter, two screens, and sending different videos or images from some surveillance footage that I had taken years before. Um, and then I took pictures with like a digital camera, so you had kind of like these videos playing and reflections in different parts of the glass. And yeah, that was a lot of fun to make. And I'm actually it's nice to hear that you like that cover because I think that is the one. Yeah, before that I didn't make it. No, but this one I had a lot of fun doing, and I felt like yeah. Can you recognize what the image is actually?
No.
No? So it's
I
a snowplow in on a blizzard in Montreal.
crazy. I
Yeah.
love that. Well, as someone who lived in Montreal a long time ago, I still think about the amount of snow that I saw there and like the snow clearing. It's like so that's amazing to know. I can tie them together now. Very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
So I do want to spend some time on your last full length Trill Scan because it's pretty unreal how good that record is, I think. And I loved Miracles. And when I saw that you had a new album and I listened to it, I like couldn't believe what like a step up creatively or sound wise that you were taking. I think that's your fifth full length, if that's correct. And
Yeah.
it's just so awesome. And a lot of what really stands out about that record is voice, which I know there's a track or two earlier in your career where that was around, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
factors into this album a lot more heavily. So maybe that's a good starting point to discuss this. Is that you singing? Where does this influence come from? And it has this almost like a sacred music choral vibe. And you did mention being in a boys choir earlier. So
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I mean that's exactly it. I was, searching to expand the palette, the textural palette that I'm working with, and obviously I felt like why not use my voice? And so I actually spent a long time. This took a few years to make, and I spent a long time sort of demoing different approaches, and this is the one that felt most natural at the time because I came from more of like a choral background. And on top of that, the album sort of discusses using different languages of harmony that come from the past, tonality and modality. And so it kind of made sense to use sort of a choral approach with that album.
I love it. It's
Uh,
really cool.
yeah. Um, I mean, also there's Lute on that. And that also came about because I was also trying to expand the palette, and I'm a kind of a guitar player before, and I didn't want to play guitar. So I did a bunch of research and found out about this lute and went over to Stuttgart in 2022, drove over and bought this lute with, 3,000 euros in cash that I was taking out from different machines frantically because the guy wouldn't take a transfer. I was like, oh my gosh, I was like in these small towns, like trying to take out cash to buy this lute. And and then got it and got in a huge fight with my partner who was with me at the time, and we drove back in silence, and it was just like a really, really strange event. But I got this Baroque lute and then was practicing, and yeah, so that also comes up on Trilskand and in conjunction with the voice, and those are two elements that had not really been sort of seen before. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm always trying to challenge myself, I guess, and keep it interesting because I want to be stimulated intellectually also, and yeah.
Yeah. So maybe now is a good time to circle back to the Electron device that you mentioned
Mhm.
earlier in the interview that you said you're still using. Um, can you maybe just talk to us about the Electron workflow and maybe why it's endlessly inspirational? Not to put words in your mouth, but you've kept it around for a reason. And I have flirted with the idea of getting a Digitact for a long time, and I haven't done it. But maybe you could talk me into this.
I like working with my hands. I don't really like working with a mouse and arranging or coming up with sounds in the computer. So I really prefer to have it coming out of a device, like an electronic device. And I find that um, if you learn something really well, then you can just kind of your intuition guides your body. And that's something that works really well with this particular machine because you basically have 12 tracks. It's like a multi-track. And on each track, as I mentioned before, you have a sampler and a synthesis, and then you have all the envelopes and things that you would usually get in the synthesizer, LFOs, effects ends, etc. So, what I end up doing is just improvise long sessions and record it all. And most of the time, a lot of that is really good. And I just go and chop chop after and build songs around certain events or something. It might be like a 20-minute, 30-minute jam. And in fact, that's what happened on Beastock from the animal song that you played earlier. That is just jams and me just trying to feel free with music because I feel that that is, that's the best way forward for me is to like have create these moments where you're sort of hovering, floating, and then if you can capture that, then you've sort of like you've encoded the emotion or the feeling in that sound, and so that's really important for me. And this analog rhythm, is sort of perfect for that because I can put whatever sounds, whatever samples I want into it, and just sort of like create noise tails, and it's just such a fluid thing. Yeah, I never really like it, and it's always adapting. Like I'm always because you can put samples into it, it can be the new thing that you're working on, you know? Put lute or voice into it and it just kind of transforms. So, yeah, it's a great live tool too. Though it is mono, each voice is mono, so if you're looking for sort of that stereo feel, you might want to go to an Octatrack. I don't have one. I always wanted to get into it, but just never made the jump.
I've always been scared to get an Electron box because I knew that it would take months of my life, probably just to
Yeah.
fully learn the workflow. And
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes I'm reticent to commit like that, but I have friends that have Electron boxes and they're just amazing what they can do.
Yeah. What gear do you use when you're putting music together?
It's a good question. I bought an OP1, a teenage engineering
Okay.
OP1 a few years ago, and that kind of like changed my life. And one
Yeah.
of the understated or great things about that device is the ability, it's an amazing sampling keyboard. You can put a sample in it and map it on the keys really quickly, immediately. You can also sample the radio, which is like not something I had ever thought of. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I can really like do really cool stuff with this. So I also have one of those KO2 samplers from Teenage Engineering that also had kind of a gnarly workflow, but I've spent a lot of time making stuff with it. I don't know if I'm ever even gonna put out any of that stuff
Yeah.
because it tends to be, I don't know. I think me and everyone else who uses those falls into like a boom bap hip hop beat kind of thing. Just something structurally about it. I don't really know. So, but it's super fun. And I've definitely made a bunch of videos about that device. So if anyone is watching right now who's seen some of my other videos, they've probably seen me talk about that particular device. I do want to play a track from Trill Scan right now, though. I'm glad we were able to play a track here with some of the singing that we were talking about
Yep.
earlier.
Yep.
Um, you did mention samples and using samples with the analog rhythm. Analog rhythm, yeah. Um, are there samples in this song, or can you tell us about how you're working with samples?
Yeah, well, actually, in fact, the instrumental part of that is based mostly it's coming from an Ensoniq Mirage. So this is something I use a lot. It's a sampler. I'm using it a lot right now, actually, again. And it's an 80s sampler, like 8-bit, no, maybe 12-bit, and can go from 32 kilohertz to 16 kilohertz, depending on how much sample time you want, floppy disks. And it's got an analog filter on it. And yeah, it sounds really grimy, right? So like I was really into 90s hip hop when I was a kid in the 90s. And so this is the sound, you know? So they used to be dirt cheap. I had two. Um, and yeah, so in that I'm sampling the lute into the Mirage and using the sort of the filter on an envelope to come down. And yeah, I love this thing. I'm still using it like so much. It's just great because it just adds something that I can't find anywhere else. Like I can't maybe an MPC 60 or something or a different old AKI samplers, but I'm really a fan of sampling because you can get your organic world into sort of this electronic envelope and then, take it away. And yeah, I'm really into that.
Another thing that I'm really enjoying about this conversation is how you have some gear you lean on that you know how to use really well. And I just think that's like really cool and something I really respect as a musician who you're like, I like this one box and I can do so much with it and I know exactly how to
Yeah.
use it. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Another piece of gear I wanted to ask you about that I saw in the Mutech video was Organelle, I think.
Yep.
Is that something that's still part of your studio or live setup?
It's not. I let it go a few years ago. I'm not looking back anymore actually for it. Because I mean it's cool for like sign sort of bell things, and I found that in another FM synthesizer. And yeah, it was a little bit sort of sometimes unreliable, but it's really cute.
I was
So
about to say it's one of the coolest looking
I wish I
synthesizers.
had
I've
it
never
still.
played one,
It's
but it's
just so
just
cute. Yeah.
yeah. I think if it was on your counter at home and you had a party, everyone would be like, "What is this?" Be
What
like,
is that?
so
Yeah, what
cool,
are these
right?
wooden keys? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I just have a few more questions, and then I wanted
Sure.
to end on one last song that I love of yours. Have you ever been approached to make a film soundtrack, or if you haven't, does that interest you?
It totally does. I've never done a soundtrack. I've done some composing for independent films. But I've never done a soundtrack. And that would totally be interesting to me. Yep. So if anybody's looking for a soundtrack,
Yes,
hit
honestly,
me up.
like I think you would be incredible at it, which is why I'm asking the
Yeah.
question just to get it out there for you. Like,
Yeah.
um, get a hold of T Gowdy for this. Um, when you feel a creative block, or do you feel creative blocks, and how would you move through that? Is it to just keep working no matter what? Is it to shut off your equipment for a month and just sit at a cafe? How do you stay inspired?
Um, I generally don't have any, those canisters are always sort of full somehow for me. Though I switch it around. Like sometimes I'll just practice the lute and read Baroque music for a while, and that just kind of like shifts it. And I'm not always like making tracks, like producing things. I take large periods of time off. But when I'm back at it, it's generally it's a bit addictive. So I'm always sort of like making something and then leaving late from the studio or something, and then listening to it again the next day and coming back. And whenever I have the time to get back into it, I generally do, which is what I'm doing right now. It's really intense, but it's great. I'm happy that I have this passion because it keeps me busy and it keeps me happy and it keeps me inspired. I
Living in
mean, that
Berlin,
said,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Go
well,
ahead. I'm
that
sorry.
said, like sometimes, you need something new. And I think this is why maybe some of my records have like there's a distinct evolution. So yeah, I'm sometimes searching because I'm not bored, but just looking for something to keep it, to keep it interesting. So yeah, and that way, maybe part of the creative process for me is research and development. So finding new approaches or looking back and finding old approaches and readapting those, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what kind of inspiration do you pull from where you live in Berlin? I mean, famously creative and unique city in the world.
Yeah. Um, Well, it's a bit of a wild city. It's a bit of a crazy city. I like that, but I don't feel at this point in time that I need that in order to make music anymore. But I'm here for the time being. And there was a time, I mean, I would say this basically Therapy with Color, Miracles, and Trillscan needed to be in Berlin. I needed to be here just, just the spirit here kind of like fueled it a bit. Um, yeah, but I mean, I'm kind of reflecting and maybe coming around to getting back to Canada at some point soon, and maybe not even living in a city. It's not. I don't need that so much anymore. Yeah,
Mhm.
though I
All
like
right.
it, but yeah, it's not the thing. Yeah.
Last question is just,
hmm
is there just I I'm curious about like just a song that you really love, or maybe you could talk about an artist that you are listening to and enjoying right now.
I'm listening to William Basinski all the time at the moment. In
Cool.
particular, the track Cascade. I can just put it's a 40-minute track and it's perfect because that's how long I want to listen to it. And it's a loop and it just slowly, slightly, you know, deteriorates or alters in the way that William Basinski does so well. And I really admire this artist just for their sheer amount of restraint, like how much restraint they can conduct it all with. That's very admirable. And it's just, I mean, it's like bliss and floating and euphoric. It's kind of things that it's yeah, it's almost like I need that sometimes. It's like I need food. I need to listen to William Basinski sometimes just to like, whew, okay, society's over there and I'm gonna be over here. Yeah. Is there anything else that I really I think that's the one. It's William Basinski I'm really into at the moment. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate
You're
this.
welcome.
It's been a great conversation. Definitely just everything about talking to you has been awesome. So I really appreciate it. Um,
Thanks a lot for having me. It's been
yeah.
a pleasure. Yeah.
um, yeah. And I'm just going to play one more song and that's it. Thank you so
All
much.
right.